Hi, everybody. It's Linda Lorelle, and this is our Voices Matter podcast. Today's episode is a recording of a conversation that I did on Substack Live with Donald Graham. Donald is the chairman emeritus of Graham Holdings and, of course, is the former publisher of the Washington Post. He is also co-founder of the Dream.us, the nation's largest scholarship provider to undocumented students. We had a few technological glitches at the very beginning, but once he got in and we got going, I think it was a great conversation. I hope you enjoy. It is Linda Lorelle. Thank you so much for taking time to join me today for this edition of All Eyes on Texas. I decided to start this segment because I'm here in Houston, of course, and there is so much going on in the state of Texas right now that I believe has national repercussions. And so I wanted to try and bring some light to some of these issues that have been happening. And last week we talked about redistricting. This week we're going to be talking about immigration and some aspect of it that you might not have thought of. So let me give you a little bit of a backstory before I try and bring in my guest today. So in June of this year, after 24 years of being eligible for in-state tuition under the Texas DREAM Act, undocumented students lost that eligibility after the Department of Justice sued the state of Texas. And by the way, that law took effect under Republican Governor Rick Perry. So now the state is requiring public colleges and universities to identify those students, it says, so that it can adjust their tuition rates to out of state. Now, this is all happening in the midst, of course, of the Trump administration's massive deportation efforts. And with no clear indication of how their immigration data, the students' immigration data, that is, will be protected, this new ruling is forcing students to weigh the hope of education against the real fear of deportation. Now, my guest today is the chairman emeritus of Graham Holdings and the former publisher of the Washington Post. He is also the co-founder of the Dream.us, which is the largest national scholarship fund for dreamers. So if you will bear with me for one moment, I am going to add him, and hopefully the technology is going to be good to us today. While I was waiting for you to join, I was sharing with the folks who are online with us a little bit about how I met you, of course, through KPRC and our mutual affinity. I remember one of the first conversations we had standing outside the station was about education. And I was telling you about my scholarship fund, and now you've got the Dream.us. So that mutual thread and affinity for education and helping our young people has been there since the day we met.
And I know you've helped a ton of students in Houston and others, and you've really done great work, which I enormously.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. But we're still going strong after 34 years. But I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about you and the Dream.us. So tell us a little bit about the Dream.us, how it started and how you became a part of it, how it all came to be.
Well, it feels like a trip to prehistory, Linda, but this is only 12 years ago. In the summer of 2013, I should do a little digression for your listeners here. I am a native of Washington, D.C. I've lived there all my life. And it's an interesting place, a funny place. I've served in the U.S. Army in a war. I've paid a lot of taxes, but I've never voted for a senator or a congressman because D.C. is not a state. That doesn't ruin my life most of the time, but it is very difficult for our high school students because we're out of state everywhere. And You know, as a Texan, how wonderful it is to live in a state with wonderful state colleges and state universities that you can go to. As a representative, as a citizen, as a resident of Texas, you can go at a relatively low cost. But in D.C., I was the chair of a scholarship fund, not set up by me, but set up by several large businesses in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia for all the public and charter school students in Washington, D.C. from about 1998 to 2015. And it was a big success. The scholarship fund increased college attendance, eventually increased college graduation from pretty much every group in the city except this one group. And I didn't understand why it was, who undocumented students were, or why they couldn't go to college until I met some. And starting around 2013, I started meeting some students, became very upset by the way we were treating them, met a businessman from Texas named Henry Munoz from San Antonio, and another businessman from Florida, Carlos Gutierrez, who is from Miami, where there's many, many more undocumented students that there are in D.C. Obviously, the same is true of Texas. And we began talking. In 2013, it was still possible to say to one another, it looks like Congress is going to take care of this issue in 2 or 3 years by passing the DREAM Act, which at that time passed the House a number of times, got a majority of votes in the Senate more than once, never quite passed. But we thought if Congress may pass the DREAM Act in 2 or 3 years, that won't be any help to this year's dreamers. So maybe we should give some scholarships to these young people in the meantime before Congress takes care of this matter. This sounds, if I sound like a time traveler or someone from another universe, remember that in 2013, the Senate passed a comprehensive immigration bill that would have taken care of the challenges of the dreamers, many of them. And President Obama, actually 1 year earlier, 2012, President Obama had created a program called DACA, which was a wonderful, highly successful program. Still in effect, still the law, but never extended beyond those who came to the United States before 2007. So we started giving scholarships. We started offering scholarships to these kids, and I was very sad at what I learned. I love this country, just love it. And like you, like many of your listeners. And it seemed to me quite cruel the way these children were being treated. They a lot of the ones I met came here as very young children. After 12 years, our scholarship program has given 4-year college scholarships to 12,000 students. That's a lot of students, but it's a very, very small number compared to the number of undocumented kids in the United States. And they were. Why did they need scholarships? Because as seniors in high school, everyone else in the class, if it's a low-income school, learns that they're eligible for a Pell Grant. I think most of your listeners know what that is. It's about $7,000 a year to low-income students to go to any college. And you get that for not just 4 years, but 5 or 6 years or more if you need that long to graduate. Then the other seniors in a school can borrow the amount of money they need to go to college, to live in the dorm, to rent an apartment, to get food. You can borrow for tuition fees or living expenses, but the dreamers can't borrow a cent, not a dollar, you know. And then in half the states, they're not eligible for state aid. And there are many, many private scholarships to which they're also ineligible. And so You have students here who've been in the United States since they were babies, who had no choice in coming here, and who, as a practical matter, couldn't go to college. So we started saying, what is the lowest amount you can pay for a decent college education? And Texas actually provides a good definition of that. We started giving scholarships. The amount that we now give is $8,250 a year for 4 years. We partner up with particular colleges. Uh, some of your listeners are outside Texas, so I would say that one well-known example of a college we partner up with is the City University of New York, CUNY.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Which has 11 campuses in every borough of New York City, still costs $7,250 a year for tuition and fees. So we're paying full tuition and fees for these students. They are also, and then we give them a small inadequate stipend for transportation and books.
So what's been the impact, Don? What has been the impact of the scholarships? Give us a snapshot of some of the success stories and the impact that's been felt.
Linda, the students have turned out to be as motivated a group as I've ever met. I would say, as a group, they're a more motivated group. I've met many, many highly motivated DC public school students. But the Dreamers, as a group, they understand what it is they want and why they want it. Their families have next to no income. We see their tax returns. And the average family has a $24,000 a year income. That's the seventh percentile of Americans. But these students graduate at a 76% rate.
Yeah.
When among those who had DACA and therefore were eligible for work permits, 94% got a job within 6 months with no help from us.
What are some of the professions of these students today?
Well, their number one major is nursing. And
wow,
you know how badly Houston and Washington, D.C., and every place in the United States needs nurses. Almost 20% work in schools. And you know how badly Houston and Washington, D.C. need teachers. If you are a college graduate and pass your student teaching experience, you can walk into any school in D.C. and get a job as a teacher if you pass certain minimal criteria. So nurses, healthcare is over 20% of the graduates got jobs in healthcare. And then we have a large number of STEM majors, a large number of business majors. And we have very small numbers who go to graduate school of any kind because, as many of your listeners will know, if you want to go to grad school in this country, you better be able to borrow money.
Yeah, yeah. So, and it's interesting because a lot of the professions that you just mentioned are professions that are experiencing severe labor shortages.
Yeah.
And which makes what Texas is doing now even more concerning. And I'm being sort of euphemistic right now. So
you're right. Texas is Texas. The Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, a man whose background and you know well, and whose personal issues you know well, has conspired with the U.S. Department of Justice, with, I think, Paxton taking the lead and sort of leading the Department of Justice around by the nose. And although the Texas legislature adopted in-state tuition for Dreamers in 2001, and has many times since then, legislators have asked the legislature to repeal in-state tuition for Dreamers. They've always said no, including in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Bills were introduced in both houses to repeal it. The legislature didn't pass one of those bills. Soon as the legislature adjourned, the United States Department of Justice, plainly egged on by Paxton, filed suit in front of one of Attorney General Paxton's pet judges in Wichita Falls, Texas, claiming that to offer in-state tuition for Dreamers was illegal. And Paxton, of course, immediately said, "Oh yes, Department of Justice, Texas is guilty here." So they, in what looked like a lawsuit but was in fact a conspiracy, they did what the legislature did not do, what the voters of Texas never approved, and took in-state tuition away from these kids.
And so now, after doing that, the latest thing is that public colleges and universities now have to identify who these undocumented students are. So aside from the fact that there's been no guidance on exactly how the universities are supposed to go about doing that, there, of course, are also some concerns among those who are advocates for the undocumented community about what's going to happen with this information once it gets out there. So
Yeah,
we've already
it's
seen so much of our information pilfered and we don't know where it is. And when you look at these students being identified within the context of the raids, the ICE raids that are going on, and it's very clear they're saying out loud now, it's not just criminals. We're looking for all undocumented people. We don't care if they're criminals or not. And so what are the repercussions, the potential repercussions for these students having their status outed this way? And what does it all mean?
well, the big loser in this, Linda, and you will immediately understand this, but I'd like to make this clear to your listeners. The big loser is the state of Texas. Why? Because uh, the senator who sponsored the end of in-state tuition in the Texas Senate claimed that it would save, that Texas was spending some very large amount of money on the education of these students. On the contrary,
Mm-hmm.
the Texas was getting tens of millions of dollars. I would guess $30 to $40 million a year in
So I
tuition.
actually have a number here. In 2013, students paid $51.6 million in tuition and fees
And even in
in
Texas, that's
Texas.
before a couple of
And
tuition
that was
increases.
2013. That
Yeah.
was 2013.
So you would guess that would be maybe 20% or more higher in 2025, probably higher
Right.
than that. And
And the other side of that is the state taxpayers supported them with just 21.1 million. So
yeah, and then let's think about the students who attend the University of Houston or other fine colleges in Texas, all of which were really glad to have them, all of which understood that these are highly motivated. These are the students who do the homework. I'm not saying other students don't, but these are highly motivated students, and universities like such students. They perform well on tests. They do what universities want. They go on, as I said, our number one major nationwide is nursing. Nurses make a pretty good income these days. Teachers make a pretty good income these days. And business people make a fair amount of money. And the state of Texas has benefited from very large amounts of state income tax from these thousands of Dreamer students who've graduated from Texas state colleges, gotten jobs, remained in Texas because they love Texas and their families live there. And, we're benefiting from the opportunity afforded by in-state tuition. This is a cruel. This is doing no one any good. It isn't. I would say more than 90% of the students in Texas state universities were attending universities that are basically open admission. Our first partner in Texas was UT El Paso. UT El Paso is a famous place. As a sports fan, I don't need to tell you that it's a very famous college. It admits 100% of students who apply. we were not sending students to Texas A&M College Station because that was way more than we could pay. And Dreamer students, a handful got scholarships to places like A&M College Station.
Mm-hmm.
Many more attended Texas A&M San Antonio, which was one of our partners, again,
Mm-hmm.
to which almost everybody who applies is admitted.
Well, you mentioned A&M. So the difference in tuition,
Oh,
in-state tuition for Texas A&M right now is $13,099. Out-of-state tuition, $40,326. And University of Houston in-state is $9,711, and out-of-state is $22,191. So my question for you now is, have you talked to any of your students who are part of the Dream.us who are from Texas and are now hearing, what the environment is here, that their information, their undocumented status is going to be made public to to the universities, to the government? Have you heard from any of those students, and what are they saying, if so?
yes, we at the Dream.us, as soon as this decision came down, uh, called a meeting online of our students in Texas. Texas is our number one state, and we've had more students in Texas that not we in the state of California is the one state in the United States where we don't offer scholarships because the state itself gives the undocumented students more than our scholarship does. So we allow California to take care of its own students. We had more students in Texas than in any other state.
Wow.
We are talking with our students about trying to come up with alternatives, and we will, for them to continue their college studies. Uh, and we'll find ways for most of them, I would say, we'll find ways to offer to all of them a chance to continue their education. It may be at a campus, another campus, a private campus, but it may be, for most, it will be online. Many of these students don't want to go to college online. They loved the University of Houston. They loved UNT Dallas. They loved the fine. And again, as you correctly said, Linda, the taxpayers of Texas were not paying money to send these students to these universities.
Mhm.
The students were paying full in-state tuition, and were and you recited to your listeners how much more Texas got in revenue than it spent
Mhm.
in associated.
Exactly. So it's encouraging to hear that you and your colleagues at the Dream.us are going to come up with alternatives for these students, so that the fact that they will be subject to out of state tuition is not going to preclude them from finishing their studies. But I have to ask, and I have to wonder how they're feeling about their information becoming public and therefore ending up on a list for deportation. Have they expressed concerns to you about that? And if so, what are they saying, and how are you able to deal with that, if at all?
Linda, we have more than 4,000 students in college across the United States right now. I haven't asked all of them how they're feeling. It's a safe guess that that all 4,000 are terrified. Why should they be terrified? What they want, which is to go to college, a college for which they're qualified, a college to which they can be admitted, a college to which they can win a scholarship. Uh, that is something good. It's good for them, but it's good for the rest of us too. And you pointed out why. They want to. They're not. People are very critical of colleges now. They say you go there and you study frivolous subjects and you really don't qualify for a job when you finish. Not these students. They know why they're going. They go so they can be ready for a job when they graduate.
It's life changing for them. For
Yeah,
generational, it's
and,
generational
and I
changing.
yes, it is. Yes, it
Mhm.
is. Just to your point, Linda, uh, I would say a majority of these students. We have pretty good data on these students. And a majority within 6 months are earning more than both their parents because their parents they never had the chance to go to college. And it is generational. It is life changing, and it is when I say it's cruel. I think Trump supporting Texans, and I know many Trump supporters, a lot, probably, that goes back into my own past, but I know a whole lot of people who are voting for Donald Trump right now. And I don't mean to generalize about such people, but there are people who would say, well, who cares about these undocumented kids? We should be, uh, uh, you know, but as I've already said, they're not displacing or inconveniencing American kids, not the ones we're sending to college. And they are doing us good. If our number one major is nursing, talk to any doctor, talk to anybody that works in a hospital, talk to any nurse about whether we need more nurses anywhere in the state of Texas. We do. Talk to anybody who teaches in a school. Do we need more school teachers in the state of Texas, especially?
And not just in Texas, but across the country.
Yeah.
And so one of my questions is also about, this segment is all eyes on Texas. And the reason I started the segment is because so much that happens here in this state is a precursor for what happens in other parts of the country. So that's why this is really important. And I didn't want this topic to just kind of be brushed by the wayside in the midst of all the other crazy that's going on, in the headlines, from 1 hour to the next. So are there other states that are looking to do what Texas just did in terms of requiring their public colleges and universities to identify undocumented students? Are you concerned about that?
The other state that is being, first of all, I don't view this as an action by the state of Texas. It is not. Uh, every time the issue of in-state tuition for undocumented students has come up in Texas, educators have come up to testify about it. High school principals have come up to talk about the caliber of students that you'd be excluding from college. But I guess most and ministers and Catholic and any number of evangelical ministers have come up to testify about the human wrong that would be doing. But the most important witness, I think, has been the Texas Association of Business, which has said, we need these young people. Texas needs the biggest workforce, the most highly qualified workforce we could get. And these students are a big help. So that's Texas, the state of Texas, the voters of Texas never stepped away from in-state tuition for Dreamers. In Florida, Governor DeSantis demanded that the legislature hold a special session and vote on such a bill with no hearings, no opportunity for anybody to testify, no opportunity for the legislators to get information, with the sponsor of that bill putting forward um, uh, uh, information that, to be polite, had no documentation to it. I could be more impolite, claiming that the state of Florida was spending a lot of money on in-state tuition when it was not.
So where does that stand now? Is that something that's going on now?
They have taken away in-state tuition from the Dreamers by action of the legislature.
In Florida as well.
Yeah, in Florida. But and the administration, the Department of Justice, has also initiated a lawsuit in the state of Kentucky, which offers in-state tuition to Dreamers, but has a Republican attorney general who hasn't yet, settle in the manner that Attorney General Paxton does. He's supposed to defend the laws of the state and chose not to in this case.
Wow. So here we go. Here we go.
There are some other states, and the Department of Justice has made its position clear, for just why would they be concerned if no American students are being inconvenienced by Dreamers getting in-state tuition? They're simply the desire to be cruel.
So what is the what is a counter offensive for this, if there is one? What is the Dream.us planning to do other than, or maybe in addition to, ensuring that financially students are still able to go if they're not deported? What are the answers? What can activists, people who want to see this trend stopped in its tracks, what can they do?
We're planning to send 1,000 students, 1,000 freshmen, to college this year, 4,000 students in all. And why are we planning to do that? Because the students want to go. Because if they succeed, it'll be good for them and their families, but it will also be good for the rest of us. Because it is right. Because, this is, in some sense, in some sense, this is a civil rights matter. Why these, again, we've sent 12,000 students to college over 12 years. The average student came to the United States as a 4-year-old. If I know a lot of people who are opposed to increasing immigration, it is very hard for one of those people to get mad at a 4-year-old or to get mad at someone for something they did when they were 4, obviously, because their parents brought them along.
So I guess part of the issue in terms of trying to combat this, is it telling the stories? Is it more media coverage, both legacy media and the media on Substack and other platforms? What's the answer?
Well, there is no answer at the moment because Donald Trump has been elected president of the United States, and Ron DeSantis has been elected governor of Florida, and Ken Paxton has been elected attorney general of Texas. But I think I've lived a long time, and I've seen politics follow one course in America and then change. And I think that as America, as Americans come to see the cruelty of denying in-state tuition to Dreamers, the fact that it does no one any good, but it does these students and their families a lot of harm. I don't think Americans are cruel people, and I think one day these laws are going to go away. In the meantime, anybody that wants to help undocumented kids attend college, we are the Dream.us, www.thedream.us, and we welcome the help of anyone. And you are a friendly interviewer, Linda, as out of friendship to me and because we both believe in this. But I welcome the chance to talk to people who don't agree. I think
Well,
we're
I might take you up on that and get somebody on the other side of this issue and have the two of you on together to really have a dialogue about it. I have to ask you a more general question, because you've mentioned the cruelty that this represents multiple times. And it seems that so much of what this administration is doing is that the cruelty is the point, which feels so un-American to so many of us. How are you feeling in general about where we are as a country and how we will get back to wanting to help people pursue the American dream rather than put obstacles in their way and have cruelty be the point of everything?
well, I love this country, and let's remember that in the case of this action, while the administration is complicit and has something to do with it, a whole lot of this comes directly from Ken Paxton. I'm not a Texan. I don't. People of Texas should make their own laws and elect their own officials. But when Ken Paxton filed suit 10 years ago to end DACA, this program that President Obama created, which gave Dreamers no money, none, did not make them eligible for
Citizenship.
scholarships or loans or any of it, but gave them 2 years freedom from deportation,
Right.
a temporary Social Security number, and a work permit. That's all. Texans, according to many UT polls, Texas polls, 2/3 of Texans favored DACA. Paxton went to court to end it, and for a time ended new applications to DACA. Ultimately lost his case. The Fifth Circuit, very conservative judges, ruled that President Obama was within his rights to create DACA, just ruled that this spring. But in the meantime, 4 years had gone, but no, more than that, 8 years had gone by, because you couldn't apply for DACA in the Trump administration. Then you couldn't apply for DACA after Judge Hainan made his ruling. So many, many people who could have applied for DACA grew up and unable to apply for it, never got that. Not because of the President of the United States, but because of Ken Paxton. And so, you know, I'm I think that this country is not a cruel country. You have seen in your own life, Linda, as a broadcaster, you've seen cruel behavior towards other minority people overcome by an understanding on the part of all of us that that behavior was wrong and that what those people were asking for was right. And again, the dreamers are not asking to take away anything from any American citizen. They're asking the right to go to college and pay the same in-state tuition that every one of their classmates is paying in Texas. That's not hurting anybody. That's not costing anybody. They're asking for something that other kids in their class are getting because it's good for Texas and good for citizens. And I hope that when better public officials are elected, that they'll get that right.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because so much of this, I think a conversation like this, and so many of the conversations that I'm having with people from all walks of life and about a variety of different issues as it relates to what's happening in the country right now, when you get right down to it, Americans, the vast majority of Americans, have not been engaged in voting. They've not been engaged in exercising their democratic rights, their civil rights, their voting rights, the rights that we take for granted, until we realize that all of a sudden they might not be there. And if anything, if people get anything out of this conversation and the conversations that I have with lots of folks, it's that we have to be engaged, we have to be involved, we have to pay attention, we have to educate ourselves, we have to talk to each other. Even those people, like you just said, you're willing to have conversations with someone who's on the other side of this issue, and we should be able to have a civil dialogue about that without coming to blows or calling each other names or whatever, but we have to be engaged and involved. So as we wrap up, I want to ask for your message to just people in general, Americans in general, about not only this issue, but kind of where we are as a country. And given your incredible perspective and from your background from journalism and your family history and all of it, what is the one big takeaway that you would give to Americans as we try to move our way through this?
Well, when you refer to my incredible perspective, Linda, what I think you mean is that I'm really old. And, I am.
That's
And
not what I meant. That's
but
not what I meant.
but uh, I understand that many people feel that we've let too many immigrants into this country, and particularly that President Biden was unwise to open the floodgates to immigrants as much as he did in the last 4 years. I agree with that. I think President Biden made a terrible mistake. People feel we need more security on the southern border. I couldn't agree more, and I've said so for many, many years ago. And they feel that people who come here and commit murders, become drug dealers, gang leaders, felons, should be deported. I couldn't agree more, and I have a long record of saying that. But when this has led some people to say we should deport every immigrant, and I've seen communities now around the United States when an immigrant who's well known, who has done good things for that community, who started a business, who's been a beloved waitress in a restaurant, who's been a healthcare worker in a hospital, when those people start to be detained by ICE, those communities rise up and say, hey, this is a mistake. And I think this indiscriminate deportation may be as damaging to President Trump politically as the other kind of indiscriminate treatment of immigration was to President Biden. And I think it's a very hard thing to secure the border. If it wasn't, it would have been done by now. It also would be hard to pick out from among immigrants those who've earned the right to stay, not necessarily the right to become citizens, but the right to be here legally. But both are hard. I think we should do both.
We should be able to do both.
Yeah.
And what is your message to the dreamers out there who are feeling scared, put upon, worried about not only the ability to complete their higher education, but also the real fear of deportation? What's your message to them?
Well, my message to the dreamers in our program is we are with you, and we want you to succeed. And to dreamers who want an education, my message is you are right to want that. There's no way that it's not right for you to pursue education, as as many others in your class are doing. And I pray you do it. And if I'm quite a bit older than somebody graduating from high school this year, and I know that when that student that was now 18 or 20 is my age, they'll look back and Donald Trump will be a very small part of their life. And the rest of their life will be really different if they do what they want to do and get an education.
Don, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this conversation and you making the time to have it. Is there anything that I haven't given you a chance to say that you think is important to leave with our audience before we wrap up?
Only that I'm embarrassed that my technological ineptitude made me arrive so late. So thank you sorry, I apologize again to your audience and to you.
No problem. You were worth the wait, my friend.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to call you again when I'm going to find somebody on the other side of this issue and invite you back to have more of a dialogue like that. Okay.
I'd be delighted, Linda.
All right. Thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye. Well, thank you all for sticking with me through that and waiting for him to join us. I hope you feel that it was worth waiting for. I'm really grateful that he took the time to share his thoughts. So I really appreciate you being a part of this community on Substack, and I appreciate all of you who have followed and subscribed and also who watch our Voices Matter podcast. If there are any other topics that you'd like for me to tackle, please DM me, email me, let me know what you think we ought to be talking about. Definitely going to revisit redistricting again because it is an ongoing issue here in the state of Texas and again has national repercussions. So thank you for joining me for this edition of All Eyes on Texas, and I will see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye. So appreciate you being part of the Our Voices Matter podcast community. If you haven't already followed and subscribed to me on Substack, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm spending a lot of time there and releasing a lot of content on that platform. It's also a terrific community, and I'd love for you to join that one as well. So again, I do All Eyes on Texas on Substack on Wednesday afternoons, and I would appreciate it. So have a great day, everybody. I'll see you next time on Our Voices Matter podcast.